When my phone started ringing at 12:03 a.m., I thought it was a mistake. No one calls at that time unless it's an emergency. When I saw my boss's name flashing on the screen, my stomach tightened. I answered with a shaky hello, expecting bad news about work, or maybe an urgent file he needed. Instead, his voice came through the phone in a whisper I had never heard from him before. "Alyssa, do not come to work tomorrow. Tell no one I warned you." I sat straight up in bed, thinking I misheard. I asked him what was going on, but his breathing grew faster, like he was running or hiding. "Please trust me," he said. "Your safety depends on it." And then he hung up. For a moment, I just sat in the dark, holding the phone to my ear, listening to nothing, wondering if I had just woken up into someone else's life. My boss, Jared Cole, was the calmest, most controlled man I knew. He never raised his voice, never acted irrational. If he was scared, that meant something was terribly wrong. I tried calling him back, but it went straight to voicemail. I got out of bed and looked out my window. At first, everything was quiet on my street, the kind of stillness that makes you think maybe you imagined it. But within minutes, that silence broke. I saw flashing blue and red lights bouncing off the houses across from mine. One police car after another turned onto my street, followed by two dark, unmarked SUVs. They weren't responding to an accident. They were moving with purpose, surrounding the area. My heart pounded so loudly I could hear it in my ears. I ran downstairs to wake my mom, but before I reached her door, my brother Nathan, who lived across the street, called me. His voice was tense. "Are you safe? Stay inside and don't open your door. Something big is happening." At that moment, I didn't know if the danger was coming from outside or if I was already in it. This is the night that changed everything I believed about my job, my family, and my past. Stay with me, because what happened next is not just my story, it is a warning. Make sure you subscribe and tell me in the comments where you're watching from, because you won't believe where this leads. My name is Alyssa Reed. I am 29 years old, and up until that night, I believed I was living a quiet, predictable life. I worked as a financial analyst for Colson Financial Group, one of the most respected firms in the country. People looked up to our company, trusted it with their retirements and charitable donations. We were seen as the good guys. I was proud to say I worked there. After my father passed away 3 years ago from what we were told was a sudden heart attack, I moved back in with my mother to help her adjust. The house was peaceful, familiar, and safe. Nathan, my older brother, and former military medic turned EMT, lived just across the street with his wife and baby daughter. Our family had been through grief, but we had found our way back to some version of normal, or at least, that's what I thought. Jared Cole had been my boss for 4 years. He wasn't the kind of man who joked around or shared personal stories, but everyone respected him because he was fair. He taught me more than any professor ever had. He once told me, "Numbers don't lie, people do. Your job is to see beyond what's written and into what's hidden." I thought he was teaching me how to be a good analyst. I didn't realize he was preparing me for something much darker. The last few weeks at work, I noticed small changes. New security protocols, restricted files that were once open to our team, executives whispering behind closed doors. My friend Bella, who worked in HR, told me that outside auditors were coming in, but no one knew why. There was tension in the air, the kind of tension you pretend not to notice because acknowledging it would mean your entire foundation is about to collapse. Earlier that same day, I saw 2 men in suits walking through our floor with security badges I had never seen before. They weren't smiling. They weren't greeting people. They were observing, studying. I tried to brush it off, thinking this was all related to some financial audit I wasn't supposed to worry about. When I got home that night, my mom had made tea and asked me if everything was all right at work. I lied and said everything was normal. She always worried about me since Dad passed. I didn't want to add to her stress. But when the call came at midnight, every alarm inside me went off. When I saw police cars filling my street, I realized this wasn't random. This wasn't about my city. This was about me. My phone buzzed again. A message appeared from an unknown number. "If they knock on your door, Do not answer. They are not here to protect you. I read that message 3 times. My hands grew cold. I walked to the window and saw officers stepping out of the SUVs, speaking quietly into radios. They weren't responding to a call. They were carrying out a planned operation. The peaceful life I thought I had was gone in a moment. And it all began with that phone call from my boss. I backed away from the window, struggling to steady my breathing as the flashing lights reflected across the living room walls. My mother came down the stairs in her robe, confusion turning into concern the moment she saw my face. Before she could speak, my phone buzzed again. Another message from the unknown number. Do not call anyone from work. They will trace it. Destroy your work phone now. A chill ran down my spine. This wasn't a prank. Whoever was messaging me knew exactly where I worked, exactly who might be coming, and worst of all, they were giving instructions like someone who had planned for this moment for a long time. I looked at my mother and tried to explain without scaring her. Something is happening at my job. Jared called and told me not to go to work tomorrow. Her eyes widened. At midnight? She asked. I nodded. Just then, I saw Nathan's truck pull into my driveway. He rushed inside without knocking, still in his EMT uniform. The police are setting up a perimeter, he said. They've been ordered to search certain homes. They're not saying why, but your name was on one of the lists I heard over the radio. My heart dropped. Me? I asked in disbelief. Nathan nodded grimly. They're not here to ask questions, Alyssa. They're here to seize something. My mind raced through everything at work. Documents, confidential files, encrypted communications. And then it hit me. My work laptop was still in my bag in the foyer. Before I could grab it, headlights turned into the driveway. A beam of white light flashed across our front door. Nathan quickly turned off the interior lights and motioned for us to stay quiet. My phone buzzed again. They will knock in 30 seconds. Do not open the door. Do not let them take your devices. Trust no one wearing a badge tonight. I read the message out loud. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. Nathan's jaw clenched. You think this is real? I turned my phone toward him. The next message appeared instantly. Your father died trying to expose them. They won't let you survive if they think you know the truth. My knees almost buckled. What does my father have to do with this? I whispered. My mother's face turned pale. She looked away, as if she had just been caught hiding a truth she prayed would never surface. The doorbell rang. Once, sharply. Then again, louder, accompanied by a firm knock. Police. Open the door immediately. I froze. Nathan grabbed my laptop bag and motioned for me to follow him. We moved quietly through the kitchen and into the basement. My mother followed, still in shock. Every step felt like my heart was pounding against my ribs. We could hear the voices through the door upstairs now. We have a warrant. Open the door or we will enter. My mother whispered, What is happening? Nathan looked at me. His eyes asked the same question mine did. Is this about your job or something much bigger? We reached the basement storage room, and Nathan shut the door behind us. He turned on a small lamp and pulled a metal box out from under the stairs. Our father's old locked chest. This is where Mom kept Dad's files, he said. My mother tried to stop him. Nathan, don't. But it was too late. He entered the code our father once said we should never forget. The box clicked open. Inside were papers, hard drives, and a sealed envelope with my name on it. Before I could open it, a loud bang echoed upstairs. The front door had been forced open. We heard heavy boots entering the house. My heart was racing uncontrollably as I tore open the envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter from my father. My eyes scanned the first line, and I felt the world tilt beneath me. If you are reading this, it means the people I feared have come for you. They are not coming because of something you did. They are coming because of what I left behind in your name. I looked up at Nathan, my voice barely holding steady. They're not here to question me. They're here to take me. Upstairs, officers were moving through the house, their voices stern, their footsteps getting closer. My mother took my hand, tears filling her eyes as she whispered, Your father didn't die of a heart attack. He was silenced. At that moment, Everything I thought I knew about my life, my job, and my family shattered. My boss's midnight warning, the police at my door, the secrets buried in my father's files, they were all pieces of the same truth, and I was now standing at the center of it. The footsteps upstairs grew louder as officers moved through the hallway with a heavy, deliberate pace, opening closet doors and calling out my name. They were not searching for evidence. They were searching for me. My heartbeat hammered inside my chest as I clutched my father's letter in my shaking hands. The words written in his unmistakable handwriting stared back at me. The truth is, in the drive, if it falls into the wrong hands, they will bury it, and you with it. Nathan quickly pulled out one of the old hard drives from the chest and connected it to his secure tablet, his training kicking in with calm precision. My mother stood beside me, trembling, but there was a look in her eyes that I had never seen before, something between regret and resolve. "Alyssa," she whispered, "your father wanted you to have a choice. He spent the last months of his life trying to bring this to light, but he couldn't finish it. He believed you could." I looked at her in disbelief, overwhelmed by the realization that both she and my father had known our family was living inside a secret web of danger for years. Nathan's fingers flew across the screen as he decrypted the files. Lines of documents, transaction records, email chains, and names began to appear. Names I recognized from the news, government agencies, charity boards, and even law enforcement. This wasn't corporate fraud. This was organized corruption on a national scale, and Colson Financial Group was right at the center. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed upstairs. They had kicked open another door. One of the officers shouted, "Basement clear next, move!" I could almost feel the vibration of their boots approaching. Nathan looked at me and said firmly, "We have less than a minute. If they see this drive, we're done." I could feel the panic rising in my chest, but underneath all the fear, something else began to awaken, a sense of purpose. I thought about the midnight call from my boss, his trembling voice begging me to trust him. I thought about the life I had lived, believing my father died peacefully. I thought about how many people would be destroyed if this truth never surfaced. Then I thought about my mother's words. "He believed you could." A realization struck me with undeniable clarity. I had spent years analyzing numbers, tracing financial patterns, uncovering hidden discrepancies. I had unknowingly been preparing for this moment. The choice was no longer whether I should run. It was whether I had the courage to step into the truth my father left behind. I took a deep breath and looked at Nathan. "Transfer everything to a secure server. Get it off this drive. If we lose it, we lose everything." Nathan nodded and began uploading the files to an encrypted cloud connection he used for medical emergencies. The lights flickered slightly as the basement door rattled from the force of someone trying the handle. My mother grabbed my hand and whispered, "Alyssa, once you do this, there is no going back." I met her eyes and replied, "There is nothing to go back to. Not anymore." Just then, my phone buzzed with a new message from the unknown number. "If you want to survive, expose them before they silence you." The basement doorknob turned. Officers were seconds from breaking in. Nathan hit the final command, and the files began transferring. The progress bar moved slowly, each second stretching longer than the last. The first blow hit the basement door. Wood splintered. My mother gasped quietly and stepped in front of me, as if her body alone could shield me from what was about to happen. I held the drive in one hand and my phone in the other. If I pressed send, every document, every name, every secret would go to multiple news outlets and independent investigative platforms. My father's unfinished fight would become public in an instant. The door cracked at the hinges. I raised my phone and pressed send. The room was plunged into a strange silence in my mind, like the entire world held its breath with me. Then the upload confirmed. The files were gone from our hands and now floating through cyberspace where no one could stop them. The basement door burst open and officers flooded in with weapons drawn, ordering us to step back. But I was no longer the hunted. I was the witness. I was the voice my father trusted to finish what he started, and they were too late. The moment the file transfer was complete, and the send notification appeared across my phone, time seemed to fracture into slow motion. The officers stormed into the basement with flashlights cutting through the room like blades, their voices sharp as they shouted commands for us to raise our hands. My mother gasped but stood tall, her eyes shining with defiance rather than fear. Nathan stepped in front of me, ready to protect me from whatever came next, but I could already feel the shift in the atmosphere. The officers were no longer in control. Their radios began crackling with rapid alerts. One officer froze mid-step as a dispatcher's voice came through his earpiece, frantic and urgent. All units respond immediately. Classified financial documents linked to federal investigations have just been released to the public. Repeat, secure the source immediately. The officer's eyes darted to me, and in that moment I knew he understood that I was no longer just a target. I was now a witness and potentially a federal whistleblower. His expression changed from aggression to hesitation. Suddenly, another voice came through his radio, louder this time. Do not touch the Reed residence. Agents are en route. Secure perimeter only. He lowered his weapons slowly, as did the others, not out of desire, but because they had just received an order that overrode their mission. Before I could catch my breath, my phone lit up with notifications. News outlets were already posting breaking alerts. Explosive data leak exposes massive government and corporate corruption. I watched in disbelief as names I had only seen on headlines, people I once assumed were untouchable, flashed across the screen. It was all out in the open now, and there was no stopping it. My father's files had gone live. In that moment, every ounce of fear inside me turned into a weighty stillness. There was no going back. The truth was no longer mine to carry. It belonged to the world. Then, behind the group of officers, I saw movement on the steps. A figure descended, slowly, cautiously. For a heartbeat, I thought I was imagining it. But then I heard his voice. Stand down. She's under protection now. It was Jared, my boss, the man whose midnight phone call had started this all. He looked exhausted, bruised, and wounded, as if he had escaped something violent. The officers stepped aside immediately. Some even lowered their heads slightly in recognition. Jared walked toward me, his eyes filled with a mix of relief and sorrow. You did it, he said quietly. They can't bury it now, no matter what they do to us. My mother stepped forward, her voice trembling. Who are you really? Jared met her gaze steadily. Someone who made the mistake of trusting the wrong people for too long. Your husband tried to expose this before me. They silenced him. I swore I would not let them silence his daughter too. The truth hit me like a wave. My father's death had never been the end of his fight. It had been the beginning of mine. Suddenly, chaos erupted upstairs. Shouts echoed from outside, followed by the unmistakable roar of helicopters. The entire house shook as tactical units surrounded the property. A female agent in a dark suit entered the basement with authority, flashing a federal badge. Alyssa Reed, Jared Cole, you are now under federal protective custody. We need to move immediately. She looked at the officers still in the room. You are relieved. The officers stepped back and left without a word. The agent turned to me. Ms. Reed, you just exposed one of the largest financial crimes in modern history. I don't think you understand what you've done yet, but you will. As we moved upstairs, escorted by agents, I saw neighbors standing outside, wrapped in blankets, eyes wide with confusion and fear. Some looked at me like I was a criminal. Others looked at me like I had just saved them from something they couldn't see. My knees felt weak, but I kept walking. I had crossed the line between ignorance and truth, and now I would have to live with the consequences. As we were escorted into a black SUV, my phone buzzed one last time. A message from the unknown number appeared. Your father would be proud. The truth is no longer buried, but this is only the beginning. Be ready. I held the phone in my lap, the full weight of my new reality settling into my bones. I had not just unraveled a conspiracy, I had inherited a mission. And as the vehicle pulled away from the only life I had ever known, I realized something powerful. Sometimes the most terrifying thing is not that danger is coming, but that destiny has finally arrived. The drive to the federal safe house was silent, except for the soft hum of the engine and the rapid thud of my heart. I stared out the tinted window as my quiet neighborhood disappeared behind us, replaced by miles of highway and flashing headlines on my phone that seemed unreal, as though I were reading about someone else's life. But this was mine now, and nothing about it would ever be the same. By the time we arrived, the news had already reached every corner of the country. The files my father died protecting were no longer secrets. They were front-page truths igniting national outrage. Political leaders resigned overnight. Investigations launched across multiple agencies. Bank accounts were frozen. Arrests were made. The public was angry, confused, and hungry for answers. I had not just flipped a switch. I had cracked open a vault that could never be sealed again. Inside the safe house, my mother sat beside me, silent but steady. She held my hand, as if reminding me that even in chaos, family was still real. Nathan stood at the window, talking to agents, already stepping naturally into a protective role. And Jared, he sat across from me, exhausted, bruised in body and spirit, but no longer hiding in shadows. There was a heaviness in his eyes, not regret, but solemn acceptance. He had spent years trying to fight quietly from the inside, but he had finally realized what my father had known a long time ago. You cannot change a corrupt system by playing its game. You have to break the game entirely. Over the next several weeks, my life transformed in ways I never imagined. I became an official federal witness. The media branded me everything from hero whistleblower to unintentional revolutionary. My father's name was back in the news, but this time not as a silent tragedy. It was as the man who built the first path to the truth. The letter he left me, the words I had read while crouched in the basement as the door was being broken down, became my anchor. If you are reading this, it means fear has found you. But fear is not the end. It is the call to rise. I understood those words more deeply each day. I had spent most of my life believing my role was small, that my job was to run numbers and stay out of trouble. But my father and Jared had seen a path far bigger than I ever imagined, and now it was mine to walk. Congress launched hearings. Victims of financial fraud stepped forward. Whistleblower protections expanded overnight. It was not a peaceful process. It was painful, messy, full of backlash and threats. But truth is rarely gentle. It doesn't arrive to comfort. It arrives to cleanse. And as the world changed around me, I felt something inside me change too. I no longer feared the truth. I respected it. I no longer ran from danger. I faced it. I no longer wondered who I was meant to be. I knew. Months later, when my testimony concluded and Jared entered witness protection, he left me a message. Your father believed the truth could change the world. You proved he was right. Now you must decide whether you will let this moment end or let it begin something new. Those words stayed with me. Instead of returning to my old life, I started a foundation in my father's name, dedicated to protecting whistleblowers and exposing hidden corruption. My story was no longer just a warning. It became a platform for others who had been silenced, threatened, or ignored. People from across the country reached out, not with fear, but with courage, ready to speak. My father had once said that the most dangerous lies are the ones everyone agrees to ignore. He died trying to expose those lies. I lived to finish that fight, and I will never stop. So if you are watching this right now, ask yourself, if someone called you in the middle of the night and told you not to show up to your life the next day, would you run from the truth or would you stand for it? Because sometimes, the warning you fear the most is the doorway to the destiny you were born to step into. If this story moved you, if it opened your eyes, or made you think about the power of truth, make sure you subscribe to this channel and tell me in the comments where you're watching from, because your voice matters, and the next story could be yours.